All righty, everybody, welcome back to the Relevant Recruiter Show. I've got a phenomenal guest here. We've just had a great prep session, having some fun already. So welcome to the show, Mike Cohen, Batman.
Thanks, Donnie. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm excited. This will be good.
Yeah, man, thanks for being here. I appreciate you showing up. And I know you're a busy guy and taking time out of the day to do this and serve me and serve these people. This is gonna be a lot of fun. Where are you located, man?
I live in Houston, Texas, as of right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
beautiful. And how long have you lived there?
too long. Uh, Coming up on 3.5 years.
Sweet.
Right.
You married?
I am. I'm married to a beautiful woman who is actually a principal at Mercer HR. So
Oh,
she's beautiful
beautiful.
and a boss. Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. Excuse me while I get my stuff set up here, but that's awesome. Any kids?
No, no kids. We have two fur babies. I'm one of five kids. My wife
Okay.
is also one of five. And so we have 16 nephews and nieces between the two of us. We're good. Every family gathering for us is like, oh yeah, this is why we're not going to do that. Okay, cool.
That's good. You got the whole bring them in, have some fun, ship 'em away, go back to mom and dad. Yep. Yep. I can't say the same. I've got five of myself, so yeah, I don't have that fun.
What? That's awesome. How old?
Wide range. So I've got a blended family. When I got married, my wife had two. I had two. So we've got a 13-year-old, 11-year-old. Well, my daughter will be 11 in about a couple weeks here. So 13-year-old, 10-year-old right now, 9-year-old, 7-year-old, and then a 9-month-old. So we've got a his, hers, and ours situation now. So yeah, it's
Love
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Good
it's
for
been
you.
pretty awesome. So awesome, dude. So tell us, I know you get it all the time, but I got to know, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's not Superman, but it's Batman. So tell us about Batman.
Yeah, yeah. People always ask the question in weird ways, so I have lots of answers, right? When they're like, "Hey, like, what's the deal with Batman?" I'm like, "Oh, he's a comic book character." People are like, "Yeah, I get that. Thanks." So for me, it was a branding, it was a decision, right? People always want to know, like, "Oh, how'd you get the name?" I was like, "Oh, I gave it to myself," which is way less cool than people think. But it was like 4.5 years ago now. I was working for a boutique agency in New York City doing tech recruiting and had some super cool clients, like really cool clients in the city. And I was like, I need to start branding me, not my company. Right. And so I was like, all right, thinking about my name, right? It's Michael Cohen. I'm like, all right, what can I do? Nothing rhymes with Cohen. Michael's super generic. Thanks, mom. That's awesome. My initials are MC. Maybe I'll do something there. And this is right around the time that our current president started running for office. Now, that may not seem like it equates. However, our current president had a lawyer who's now in jail who said some pretty just like messed up, rude, jerky things on camera. His name is Michael Cohen. And when I saw his interview where he was just an objectively just a jerk, he's like, says who?
Right.
Says who? I was like, well, I'm never appearing on Google again. I was like, that's the end of that one. I'd have to do something messed up that it wouldn't matter anymore. And so I was like, you know what? I love Batman. I didn't read comics as a kid, contrary to what people would think. I read my first when I was 19, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like, he's the greatest of all of the heroes, which I can certainly go into detail about. But he's the branding's super easy. I think he's the greatest of the superheroes, and he's the world's greatest detective. That's what he's known as. People forget that DC Comics stands for Detective Comics. It literally spawned from Batman as the original ID or whatever it's called. So yeah, so that's how that started, and people seem to jump on it, and I love it.
That's awesome, dude. I didn't even realize that DC Comics that you definitely I learned something new already. So that's great. And I love where the inspiration comes from. I don't want to be associated with that lawyer. I need to come up with a new brand. That's so
Oh,
good.
yeah.
That's so good. Well, great, man. Well, tell us a little bit, tell us about your journey into recruiting. How did you get started in this space?
Oh, same way that everyone gets started, I feel like. I just fell ass backwards into it. I graduated college a year early because I hated where I was going in upstate New York, and moved to Boston on a total whim one weekend with a buddy of mine, and needed a job. And I looked up online and was like, oh, entry level sales. I was like, perfect. Came in and it was a tech recruiting company in Boston. So I was 21, started doing tech recruiting and haven't looked back since. You know, and now that I'm 24, I've got a bunch of years of experience under my belt. You're not supposed to laugh when I say that. You're supposed to go, yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You're 24. That's what I would have guessed too. So it kept with it. I've been all agency side. I do contracts for large companies. So I sat quote unquote in-house, but in a unique capacity, and worked for people for like 10 years, 10 and a half years, and realized, you know, in full disclosure, I'm not a great employee. I'm not a great full-time employee. I'm very good at what I do objectively. I'm very good at this. I have a really hard time with doing things for the sake of this is the way we do them. I love to innovate. I love to change. I love to use tooling out the wazoo. And so I decided to start my own company. Did that. It's been like realistically, it's been like a year and a half, and we've been around for 3 years, but hardcore functioning for a year and a half. And for me, it's been a really unique journey of finding out what I love and what makes me me, and being able to brand, not like create a brand for myself, but just be myself and have a brand around that. I think you had a post about that recently, which we'll talk about. Yep. And come up with a new way of providing recruiting services that hasn't existed before in the past. And I'm hoping is going to be a game changer in the space.
I love it, dude. So you're not working inside the box that everybody tells you to work in then, huh?
No, man, no. I think, you know, I found doing contract sourcing mainly. We do some recruiting, but it's mostly sourcing. People would just pay, you know, for their 40 hours of work every week. And like, you go to some of these larger companies and it's like, are they doing 40 hours of work? Like, how do you know? How do you actually track that, right? You don't have a camera on them all day. And truthfully, I just struggle with the fact that like people are paying for other people's time, not their actual work. Like, who cares? 40 hours, 20 hours, 80 hours, you need a thing done.
Yeah.
Get the thing done. If you can do that thing in 15 minutes, yay, that's awesome. Good for you, right? Like, yep. So I came up with a deliverables model instead, where the payment is still the same. You take your hourly times 40 hours a week. But instead, we agree that every week you're going to get 200 candidates for whatever job that is. Right. We're going to rank them. We're going to do the outreach and everything. So you get the same service, quote unquote, but it's not based on this arbitrary idea of hours. It's based on you need a thing, and I'm going to give you that thing. And it's just, I find it to be really fulfilling for me personally. I also have ADD, so I get to work on different things every week, which is also super important. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, that's me. It's my journey. It's where I am now. Got 2 great colleagues who are up and coming in the space, and Julia and Nikeo, they're killing it. And I guess this is a good platform. I actually haven't announced this. Julia Adler is joining Wayne Technologies on Monday. So congrats to that, coming out of
awesome.
IQ Talent Partners, and referred from Cindy Davis and Chris Murdoch. So yeah. Welcome, Julia. Sorry that it's so public.
That's sweet, dude. That's sweet. So the business is 3 years, we'll call it a year and a half, like you said, and now you're bringing some people on and making some noise on, and you're doing it without trying to be what everybody tells you to try to be. You're doing it through innovation, which I think is so important. And like you said, just, now being you, building the brand around you, who you are, and without apology. I think that's huge. And, obviously we talked a little bit about my post and what kind of, some feathers I ruffled the other day with that thing. But yeah, man, I think that so many people are walking around wearing a mask. I was wearing a mask, trying to fit in and trying to be something that I'm not. And I'm really just now more committed to doing what serves me and serves my audience. And if somebody's not okay with that, then, we're not a good fit, and that's okay. There's an abundance out there, right?
Yeah. I love that we spoke about this, and I'm in the same boat. So before we get into the actual topic, I'm going to let people know, and I talked to you about this. Yep. So I'm an addict in a 12-step program, right? It's long time sober and everything. But the process of recovering from some type of an addiction through a program like that is the exact same process that I went through to revolutionize the way that I recruit and the way that I approach the market. Right now, I will say I'm a firm believer that people should not swear professionally. I think it's fucking unprofessional. So I think there's a time and a place for it. Yep. But to your point, like if people could get past the first line, first off, untie your knickers. It's the F word. It's only reason it's a bad word is because we assigned it to be a bad word.
Exactly.
Right? Like there's no actual historical thing that says like, you know, like derogatory racial terms. They have a historical reference as to why they're bad words. We assigned the F word to be a bad word. So like, get over your shit.
Yeah.
That being said, your post was about taking a mask off, and I do trainings around messaging a lot for recruiters. And it's the conversation, it's the only conversation we have around messaging is, are you reading your messages out loud to yourself? And are you able to sound like you? Right? I'm a dude, guy, man, awesome type of person, right? It's how I communicate. I write like that. You know, I'm not like a, hi, Donnie, I found your profile on LinkedIn and think I have a good, that's not how I talk.
Yep.
Like, hey, Donnie, saw your profile, would love to connect with you about blah, 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 blah. And it's what I type, right? Because it took me 10 and a half, 11 years to remove that mask, a whole lot of therapy and recovery work. But I realized at the end of the day, for internal recruiters who are saying right now, like, well, that's not our culture, like that would be unprofessional, blah, blah, blah. Your company hired you and you're a human, you're not a robot, which means that you as a human and your personality is in alignment with their corporate culture, which means that if someone doesn't like your personality, they're probably not going to fit in your corporate culture, right? The caveat to that is if you're the person who sits alone at lunch every day, in the corner and nobody talks to you, maybe stick to your professional writing and stuff. That's totally cool, right? But for the rest of us, like, you're a part of the culture and that's totally okay. And if people don't like you, that's okay. That's okay. We're so afraid of discomfort and judgment and validation that we forget, hey, I'm a recruiter. I'm damn good at my job. I represent my company. I represent myself genuinely. I'm always going to treat you with respect. I'm always going to be honest with you. And therefore, like, hey, if it works, great. If I'm not your cup of tea, that's great too. That's great too.
Yeah. And I think that comes from, like we talked about before, it's really that abundance mindset that, being in alignment with your core values. Now, just because I swore in a post the other day doesn't mean I'm out here popping off. My clients know who I am. It's not something that I would suggest that they send to HR or anything like that, right? It's me sharing my truth, and people not being able to see that just shows that, probably they're wearing a mask, right? Should I have put on my email mask and then taken that email mask off and then put my LinkedIn mask on and then taken that mask off and then put on my Facebook mask? Nah, it's like, this is who it is and this is what it's about. And I think going back into one other thing you said of, when it comes to like creating your messaging, dude, that's exactly what I tell my clients. Like, hey, I can help you with these, scripts and things, but ultimately it needs to come from who you are, because when you align that messaging authentically, it's actually, in a weird world, the universe is going to reward you more. You'll get better results from your campaigns when you are authentically you. So yeah, I can provide you kind of a framework, but you need to go be the creator. And I think that's what people need to do, is just step into their creator. And that's what society, pushes back on. That's what I was going through, was like, I felt like I had to be this mold of this certain person. Now I could give a shit. It's like, hey, here's who I am. If you like me, great. If you don't, move on. And in fact, I served a lot of people the other day. The ones that don't like me, it's a gift to you. Hey, now we both know that we're not a fit to work together. You can move on and go start making other choices. You're welcome. And I think that when people can show up and approach that, and I'll be honest, I've never shown up and approached it that way. I've always been on the edge, right? And not wanting to piss people off. And now it was like gratifying, because what I received in return, the messages or people sharing me in return, were just incredibly powerful, and they were impactful on what was happening in their life and them being able to share their truth. So I think it's so important. If you're watching this right now, give a like or thumbs up if you have worn a mask before, or if you're open to maybe pulling that mask off and starting to put yourself out there. I know Craig was watching. Craig, you did your first video on LinkedIn yesterday, dude. Massive props for stepping out there and doing that.
Yeah, that's nerve wracking. I've got, that brought up, when you said that, brought up three things for me that I want to call out. Number one is the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset. So like, for anybody watching, like, to point this out, Donnie and I are in competing industries. Donnie does training for recruiters. I also do training for recruiters, right? Sourcing is my main business, but like, we both do the exact same thing. And neither of us feel any type of way about being on a podcast together, because we both believe like there are going to be people who like Donnie, there are going to be people who like me, there will be people who like neither of us, which is fine. And therefore, like, we want to create a sense of community. I know Donnie's in alignment with this. Like, let's help each other. Let's build each other up and not worry about who's going to get what. Where's this going to come from, right? So I think that's one. I think two is for people who are worried about the professionalism and the branding piece or saying the F word. If you want to be one of the best recruiters in the world, in your market, in your space, why don't you look at who some of the best recruiters are in the world who are making the biggest impact? Look at the Amy Millers, look at the Steve Levy's, look at the Dean DeCostas, look at and find Tim Sackett, right? Find all of these people online and see how they communicate. They don't communicate like you think they do. They communicate the way that we do, like themselves. They'll swear when they wanna. They'll look like this in podcasts. I look like this on stage at conferences. This is who I am, right? And so, like, if you want to be the best, act like the best and look like the best. Go be you. So
showing up unapologetically yourself is like the biggest win you can have in your life, and completely detaching from the results. And I just went through an exercise this week, and it was like chocolate or vanilla. So Mike, chocolate or vanilla?
Oh my God, totally mood based. But I'll say chocolate for the sake of argument.
Why?
Because it's good and I like it.
Because you choose it, man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm like, because I want.
Yeah, because you choose it.
Thanks.
I don't care.
Thanks. Now I want chocolate ice cream. Perfect. Cool. Thanks. So, hey, just a quick story for everybody. And I like to share this regarding the being yourself and being true. And my sister knows I put her on blast every time for this. So my sister, I have a younger sister, is one of my best friends. And she is brilliant. She's the smartest of the five of us in our family. Graduated school with 2 degrees in 3 years, and then spent 10 years at...
Tough to compete with right there.
I stopped. She spent 10 years at New York Life in the financial analysis space, right? So doing financial analysis of insurance. And she comes to me one day and goes, hey, I'm thinking about leaving and looking for a new job. Would you help me? And I'm like, well, this is the one time in your entire life when I can help you. Yes, absolutely, whatever you need. So we came up with a game plan that she'd find the job. I'd find the hiring manager and the head of recruiting. I'd get their email addresses, and she would write like this cover letter, quote unquote, but it'd be the email that we sent putting her in as opposed to applying, right? And so one of the first jobs she found was at Bed Bath & Beyond. And it was a manager of strategic finance dealing with supply chain and e-commerce. And I was like, hey, dude, so you've been a financial analyst. You've never been a manager. You've worked at an insurance company and you've never done supply chain or e-commerce. Are you sure about this? And she was like, yeah, I think it would be fun. And I think I could be a great fit. I was like, okay. So we found the hiring manager, found their email, and I'm like, hey, write the cover letter. And it went the exact way. If anybody's listening on this right now, it went the exact way you think. Dear hiring manager, I found your job on LinkedIn and think I would be an excellent fit. Based on my experience at New York Life, I blah, 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 right? And like I read it and was like, dude, you know that like you could literally take out Bed Bath & Beyond and put in any company and use this same message? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, no. I was like, that's not good. I was like, why do you want this job? And she's like, well, I think my skill set aligns with what they're looking for. And I'm like, Lauren, fucking stop it. I'm your brother. Talk to me like your brother. Why do you want the job, right?
Right.
She's like, well, I have 3 kids. Like, I shop there all the time. I love the way they're coming up with creative ways to compete with Amazon. And I'm like, cool. Like, write that, dude. Write that down. And she's like, I'm not writing that I have 3 kids in an intro email. I'm like, do you not have 3 kids anymore? I was like, the youngest is my godson. I was like, please tell me that you still have 3 kids, right? So she took my advice on this, which I'm really, really appreciative of, and sent that over for a job she had no business getting. And I will show you. So if you can see this, this is my sister, who is the manager of strategic finance at Bed Bath & Beyond for the last 2 years. So I'll tell you, she only got that job because of that letter. Her resume did not line up with what she was looking for at all. But the manager said, and I've asked to get this recorded, but they won't, that the only reason that he even spoke to her is because of the email that she wrote. And it's because she was herself.
Yeah.
Yes, email, right? So like you want living proof, you can reach out to her. Her name's Lauren Tenari with a Y. She'll tell you it's true. It works, and people are receptive to that.
You mean, wait, hold on. By just being unique in yourself, you can actually start winning a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll also win the things that you want to win, and the things you don't win, you wouldn't have wanted to win anyway.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great story. And that's, I mean, that's a job search, and that's also how people are approaching their business too,
Hmm.
right? Is they're trying to stay within the confines of like, well, this is what it should look like and what I should do, and this is what so and so is doing. And the win is when you step into your creative power and when you are your authentic self. Um,
Oh, preach.
it's just, and it's relaxing. It's relief, and it's a big relief.
Yes, sure is. So.
So let's talk about the topic. Let's talk about how to adopt some processes in your business.
Yeah. So I gave a talk about this at TalentNet recently. They're actually holding another event. Shameless plug for you, Craig Fisher. They're holding another event in Austin in like 4 weeks. I'll be talking about this again. I encourage people to show up. It's cool. It's a cool event. Um, and the topic was talking about how addiction is directly related to recruiters in the space. And I got to get on stage for the first time and share with people that I'm an addict and in recovery, and it was terrifying. And I'm not afraid of public speaking ever. I was freaking out before this, and I got to get on and kind of share, as I'm going to share with people now, that if you're thinking to yourself like, oh well, I'm not an addict. Yes, you are. Everyone is an addict to something. It's the brain's natural way through evolution, unless you're a sociopath, in which case you might not actually be an addict. It's the brain's like biological and physiological way of dealing with situations that present itself as insurmountable or unbearable. Right. And it's often referred to in recovery as like an intolerable reality, facing a situation that you're like, I can't handle this. Your brain will naturally go and numb out, they call it, right?
Right.
With something, right? Maybe that's fantasy thinking, maybe it's shopping, maybe it's working out, maybe it's gambling, drinking, drugs, sex, whatever that is, right? There's a whole world of stuff that you can be addicted to.
Yep.
And some of it seems good, some of it doesn't, right? If you look at that person working 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, you're like, whoa, that's commitment. I'm like, whoa, that person has an addiction problem. They're running from something, right? Maybe it's issues with validation, right? Or
Yep.
their self-worth, or a rough something as a childhood. There's always something, right? So my
Yep.
point there is everyone has these tendencies. Recruiters tend to have these tendencies professionally, right? And I see it all the time when I'm doing training. I'm sure you do also. Where people are recruiting now the same way they were 5 years ago or 7 years ago, right? You jump on LinkedIn, you do a buzzword search or a title search or whatever, and you find people, you put them in a project, and then you email them. And like, if you are like one of the better recruiters at your company, you'll email them a whole second time, right? And it's like, it's this process, right? And to prove this point to people, right? I'm not an addict. Great. Turn your phone off for the next 24 hours.
Oh, absolutely.
No one's going to do that. I am
Absolutely.
not going to do that. I'm addicted to my cell phone. I know that I am, right? It's
Yep.
literally right here, like facing me, so
Yep.
I can see stuff. So we all have that, right? And we're addicted to the processes that we go down for recruiting because we feel things like pressure to deliver on metrics that are not realistic or out of our control, and that's a big one, is the control issue, or the need to be something, do something, prove yourself, show yourself, or the discomfort of failure, right?
Yep.
Because when you try new things, you're going to fail. They tell every person in any 12-step program, you're going to fail in this program more than once, and that's okay. The goal isn't to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect. The goal is to get back up, recognize your failure, own that,
Yep.
and keep going down a positive path. Most people I've found in this space try some new shit. They do it for 2 weeks. They see some failure somewhere, and then they're
I
like,
talk about it all the time.
I'm going to go to LinkedIn and like find some people here again, right? If you know me, you know I hate LinkedIn. Hate. It's a great platform, and it's a great database. I hate the dependence on the platform that it's created.
Yep.
It doesn't play well with anything, and it forces people to be solely dependent on using LinkedIn. And for the amount of money that they charge, you can get a bajillion other tools that are way better and play nice with everything. So
Yep.
I'll get off that soapbox. I could be there for 30 minutes. So
Yeah. Well, I love what you're saying about like the addiction, like this, sedate yourself, and we all sedate ourselves with our phone, right? It's like, oh, I should do this work. And then it's like, okay, cool. Like, well, let me see what's going on Instagram real quick, so I don't have to do the work. And then it's like, then you talk to somebody like, well, what's the challenge in your business? Oh, I don't have enough time. It's like, yeah, you do. It's where you're allocating your time right now.
exactly
And the
right.
sedation of through device and through whatever it is. And like you said, yeah, it could be the typical addiction of drugs or alcohol, but like you said, there's many of other things, which is, that are out there. I mean, name the topic, and it could be your sedation, and it could be your addiction that's holding you there.
That's
So
right.
I love that you bring that up, and I'm sure you're serving a lot of people just by sharing your truth around, what you've been through, and, being able to be yourself.
It's life, man. Yeah, it's anything that you're doing compulsively to get away from your reality for a minute,
Mm-hmm.
it is an addiction.
Yeah.
And it's okay. That's okay.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
nothing wrong with that. Just recognizing that, right? So
Yep.
I realized I did this subconsciously because my starting of a company and in the thick of my recovery work lined up perfectly together. So I realized in recovery, there's a few tenets that are at like the core of what it is, right? So
Mhm.
the first off is something bigger than you, right? In recovery, it's finding God or a higher power, right?
Right.
In recruiting, for me, that's community, right? That's
Right.
realizing that recruiting, sourcing, this world is bigger than you are.
Yep.
And your choice is to either be isolated as you and believe the buck stops with you, the world stops with you, or get involved. Join some Facebook groups, right?
Yep.
Comment on stuff on LinkedIn, connect with people, reach out to industry thought leaders. I hate that term, but no one's come up with something better yet. I'm waiting for you, Steve Levy. So like reach out to anybody, right? I know I would, I know they would, I know them, I know most of them personally. Like they'll talk to you.
Yep.
Create a sense of community and have something bigger than yourself, bigger than your job right now, bigger than your company and your role that you can fall back on, that'll be there to support you, that'll be there to help you. When you struggle, when you stumble, when you fall, you don't know what to do, you're frustrated, that you always have the support of that group. And like, we're a really supportive group of people when you get in with the right folks.
Absolutely. And I think, going into that, I think one of the things that people face with the challenge of even taking the action of reaching out to somebody is, it's like they're sitting on the sidelines and they're telling themselves the stories, right? Oh, somebody's not going to value me. I won't get it. I've tried it for 2 weeks and it didn't work, right? And really, like, it's like the win for everybody, it doesn't matter who it is, the win is being on the battlefield. Getting off the sidelines and getting on the field, that's the win. It's showing up every day. It's embracing that resistance. It's getting better. It's realizing that you're going to fail. You're not going to get it right. And I'm sure you could say this for, yourself and even the clients you serve. When, the clients that see the best results working with me are the ones that step into it, right? And are willing to embrace the failure and build their own. I'm not the magic pill, right? You're not the magic pill. It's giving somebody else the opportunity to step into their, own creative power and rock it,
Yeah, your quote reminded me of, I'm a huge Brene Brown fan. I love her. If she happens to watch this, I also live in Houston and I want to meet you so bad. I just want to give you a hug. She references Theodore Roosevelt quote in a couple of her books, and
Mm-hmm.
it's I'm going to read it because I think it's so powerful. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself for a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if they fail, at least they fail while daring greatly. And I resonate with that, and it's taken me a long time. I'm a a perfectionist. I'm a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always strived to be perfect. And if it wasn't, it was a failure. It was very Ricky Bobby, right?
Right.
Like, you're either first or last. And like,
Yep.
that's stupid. It's a
Yep.
stupid way to look at things, but most people do, right? Not realizing that the errors and the faults and the falling on your face is actually part of the journey. It's a
Yeah.
necessary part. So
For sure. For sure.
um,
That's the win. I love that you shared that quote. That's powerful. If you don't have any battle wounds, then it's just not as gratifying.
well, you're also not going to get there.
Exactly. You're not going to get there. There isn't an easy path. And that's the thing that I think is wrong. Is there a proven way? Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you and I do. I know there's one of our other competitors, Drew Edwards, is here listening as well. And, we all have something to offer.
Mm-hmm.
We all have something that is going to be able to impact people, but it's if they choose to. And yeah, can we short track the success? Yeah. But if they're willing to step into it, right?
Yeah.
They have to be willing to step into it and go play the game. I actually had an analogy presented to me this past week, in which was like, okay, imagine you're on a football field, offense and defense is on the field. Your offense has the ball. You start the ball, on your own 35. You complete the first pass, you get 15 yards, you get to the 50. Another run, you get to the 45. Another quick pass, you're down to the 35. Bigger play, you get a chunk play. Now you're down to the 20. And then we get another couple more plays. We're at first and goal. We get stopped. 4th and goal, we convert. What a win. Now take the defense off the field.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel?
Yeah,
it ain't worth anything.
Walk down and
you walk down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
There's
a great
that.
analogy. That's right. Unless you're pushing against something. So I love that. I'm gonna try so hard to stay on task here because I struggle, and you're really fun to talk to. So thank you. The first point that we brought up was identify something bigger than yourself, right?
Yep.
In the 12-step program, that kind of represents steps 1 through 3. The next in the program, step 4 through 6, is kind of identifying your own character defects. The translation for recruiting on that is identifying who you are and your unique value. And this comes out in a couple of different ways, right? Number one, what makes you as a person, right? Like this is very philosophical, therapy, etc. But like, who are you? What makes you you? Why would someone want to hire you or talk to you? And then second, what makes you, your approach, your way of doing recruiting different, better, or unique? And if you don't have an answer to that, that means you're just like every other recruiter.
Yep.
Right? And if your answer is, well, I really care about what I'm doing and I want to get to know candidates really well. Yeah, cool. You and every other recruiter. Stop.
Yeah.
Right? So like, find out what that is. Find out who you are, what you represent, and what you stand for in the space, right? It's a lot of self-actualization, realizing that, hey, you may realize the current place you're working is not actually in alignment with who you are. That's okay, right? Don't just quit. Like, get a new job. Don't just quit. But who you are needs to be identified in the space, not just personally. I love that you have your hobbies and your friends and you own it, blah, blah, blah. But in the space, who are you? How do you show up every day, right? Like, again, to quote Brene Brown, which I'll do forever. She has a quote about her authenticity that says, she always will allow herself to show up, to be seen, and to stand her sacred ground. Right? That's her big thing that she reminds herself of before she goes into meetings and stuff like that. She'll allow space for other people, but she has her sacred ground of who she is, what makes her her, and she'll own that no matter what. And if people don't like it, that's okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's the second point. The third point, and this covers steps, I don't know, like 7, 8, 9 or something like that. 7, 8, 9. In recovery, that's making amends to people that you've harmed. In recruiting, that's representing yourself to the market now. Right. So we've done the work of creating something more meaningful than just us, just our job, just our company, and have something to fall back on and rely on that's there for us as a foundation. We've identified who we are and our role that we play in that community and in that foundation and ourselves and how we're going to approach this job. The third now is, how do we represent that to the world? How do we do that in a way that's both in alignment with ourselves and in alignment with professionalism and the role that we have, right? Like, and we talked about this briefly earlier. I swear, it's the nature of the beast. I do. I don't do it all the time, but I do. There's a line, right? I'm never going to send an email with a swear word in it, except to like my sister and best friends. I don't ever want to see that written down. It's actually, to me, it's a little ugly. Right? I'm never going to swear at a training at a client site. I'm never going to swear in a business call or a business meeting, but public forums, I'm me. This is public. It's a public forum. There's a reason it's called that. I'm a member of the public. So I'm going to stand up and I'm going to represent me, right? And so it's understanding, where's that line, right? Where's that line between who you are right now and who you truly are underneath, represented professionally, but also personally. I don't have a business Facebook and a personal Facebook, a business Twitter and a personal Twitter. I don't. I have mine, and I use it for both because it's me, right? Like, I'm not posting pictures of me smoking weed on Facebook, right? Like, it's illegal. I'm not going to do that, right? Like, I'm not posting.
Well, you're in Texas. I'm in California. There's different things of legalities there, but
I know. It's super jelly. Right. I'm not posting pictures of me drinking a ton or being drunk or being ridiculous. Not because I feel like I can't. That doesn't fit within my moral confines of what I've defined to be me and to be myself and what I stand for.
Yep.
Right. It's not because I don't think it's professional. I don't give a shit if it's professional. It's just not me.
Right.
And so that would be like the third piece behind that, right? So it's finding that community, finding your fallback, your foundation, finding you and your place both within yourself, your community, and your industry, identifying how you're going to approach the greater market with yourself and with who you are. And then the fourth and final one, this represents steps 10 through 12. In the program, this has to do with being more in touch with your community and giving back to the community. It's the exact same thing in recruiting. Are you adding value to the community, or are you just a part of it? Are you just reading the posts on SourceCon and in Facebook? Are you just liking people's posts online? Are you just sharing other people's posts? Or are you actually giving thought, knowing that in doing that, you're going to be pretty vulnerable?
Yeah.
Right? Like, every time I jump on a podcast, I know that I have to be vulnerable. I know there are people who are going to listen to this and be like, that guy's an asshole. Yeah, kinda, right? That's kinda true, but like, me. Right? And like, there's a sense of vulnerability that comes with that fourth piece here, that is putting yourself out there and knowing that like there are going to be times where you're going to be wrong. Like, I posted something when I initially kind of started putting myself out there about how I use Facebook, LinkedIn 90% of the time, and it's effective. And Tim Sackett like knocked me down to size. And I was like, holy shit, I was way off, right? And it was public. The whole world saw that. And Tim Sackett commenting on it only added the amount of people who were looking at it. And I was like, okay. It was a great learning lesson. It didn't stop me. I didn't lose business over that. I haven't lost face. I think I'm still doing pretty well, right? And like, it's just that vulnerability of accepting all of that. And so I think those four pieces were in direct alignment with what I was doing in my personal life. And therefore it made it a little bit easier for me to, I'm saying like, F it over here in my personal life. It's so much easier than in business to be like, oh, F it. Here's who I am. Love it. Hate it. This is me.
Yep. No, I certainly think there's the balance there. And like you're saying with, talking, obviously the topic a lot that's coming up today is the whole swearing thing. And I've never sworn in a post before in my life. And it's funny that I swear one time and that's what everybody attaches to. They completely missed the message, and it was, what was great about it is it did allow the critics to show up, right? It allowed the critics to show up and just being able to be with it and be cool with it, is fine. It's cool. And they're allowed to have their opinion too. And I appreciate people's opinion. And it's also that, I'm not going to go on a stage and drop F-bombs and same thing as you. It doesn't align with who I am. But like, if I'm coaching you, if I'm going to tell you need to get your shit together, I'm going to tell you need to get your shit together. It's okay. It's okay. Because sometimes it's going to serve somebody and make somebody that, happen. So I just go with who I am. And I've always done that. And even more now, more even unapologetically. Because that's how you really make an impact, right? Is kind of sticking out and being willing to jump off the sidelines and not just like put a foot in the water, but like, okay, I'm jumping in,
Mm-hmm. You brought up an interesting point about when you do and when you don't swear, and for me, it's being true, right? That
Yep.
what we talked about, right?
Yep.
So Richard Rohr, he's this Franciscan monk who wrote a lot about the relationship between the Bible and the 12-step program. I'm also a very devout Christian.
Hmm.
And one of the things he talks about was truth. What is truth? And everybody associates truth with content, which
Right.
that's a third of what truth actually is. What is truth? Truth is a combination of content, audience, and timing. And if all three aren't present, you're not telling the truth.
Right.
You're either blasting people or lying, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, I reached out to you before this podcast. I was like, hey, can I swear on the podcast, right? Like
Yep.
there are people who are like, no, we don't stand for that. And I'm like, okay, great. I
Yeah.
won't swear, right? Because that's me understanding the audience piece of this
Right.
wouldn't be fair. That would be me blasting people and not being truthful about it. And the same thing is with timing, right? Like I have something I want to talk to my wife about, right? It's been bugging me, and she had a really shitty day at work. Guess what? Right audience, right content, wrong
Wrong
timing.
timing. Yeah.
Right? And that at the end of the day defies what we actually are defining as truth.
Yep.
And that equates over into our professional lives too, and how we approach things. I'm not going to talk to a CFO of a company the same way I'm going to talk to a recruiter. Is it because I think that the CFO is a higher level position, blah, blah, blah? No, I just know my audience.
Yeah.
CFO, he's not going to have the same like sense of
Yep.
humor that I am, right? Like if she happens to, swear or make a joke while I'm on the phone, cool. I'll totally adjust to my audience and adjust my truth.
Yep.
But those three things really have to be present.
No, I agree. That's awesome. That is awesome. Dude, thank you so much for sharing all this stuff. This has been a great back and forth. We'll call it an interview, but this has just been a good little chat with you here. Yeah, a lot of fun. What are you kind of most excited about for your own personal journey, man? I mean, you've been doing this thing for a year and a half. You just mentioned a new lady that's joining your team. Got some exciting things going on. I mean, what's firing you up right now?
Oh man, what's firing me up? I finally found my lane with this deliverables-based sourcing, right? I'm getting to work with super cool companies, right? I'm
Yep.
working with the New York Times, with Waste Management, Business Insider. I'm talking to PwC tomorrow. Like these companies, I'm just like, wow, this is so cool. And
That's awesome.
I've been able to share with them, like, hey, here's what I do, here's what I stand for, and like I'm not changing that, right? Like I'm not going to work 40 hours a week for your company to do. I'd rather just turn the business down, which I did. And like, that's okay. But I think it's A, finding my lane and owning that. I think B is growing my business. I always said I never want to manage people. I hate it. It's like babysitting. And in just talking to people and growing and coming into my own maturity, last year I realized, hey, I'm going to be stuck at X amount of dollars a year. That just like, it's just all I can do. I only have X amount of time. Right. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to hire somebody. And I hired Nikeo Hill as my first colleague. And he's awesome. He's a Gen Z, super young dude, super smart. And he's working with him has inspired me to say like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm gonna do this, right? And I got referred to Julia Adler, and I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, there's some like really amazing people out there. It's yeah, sure, most recruiters suck. That's the nature of the beast. But like, there's still a lot of really awesome people, and so I'm excited about that piece, and just excited about continuing to expand and see what we can do, and grow and change and learn. Personally, I'm super excited about continuing to grow my relationship with my wife, getting closer with her, and becoming better support systems for each other. She and I have committed to going on one scuba diving vacation a year together. It's our big thing we do. And we're starting to talk about moving out of the country in a few years. And we don't have kids, so we're like, the world's kind of our oyster. She works from home with Mercer. I work from home. It's like, maybe we can explore what that looks like. So those are kind of the big things that are coalescing in my world right now.
That's great, dude. Thanks for sharing. And I can tell how passionate about your business you are, as well as your wife. And I love that. I mean, I love co-creating with my wife, and yeah, that really aligns with me too. So that's awesome, dude.
What's on your
I
roadmap,
wish we
man?
could. I mean, with my business, I can go work from everywhere, but when you're sharing custody, it doesn't quite give you.
It's expensive. The plane flights would be real expensive.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, so we'll be a couple of years. We'll be hunkered down here in California. That's great, man. Thanks for sharing. I mean, I know you got a couple conferences coming up. Why don't you plug those? And you mentioned community. Why don't you tell people how they can reach out to you and just engage with you? I know you're open arms to that. So
Yeah. So conference wise, I attend a bunch. I speak at a bunch. I think they're actually the ways I've learned the most personally. And yeah, from the talks, cool, whatever. They're good. Don't get me wrong. It's meeting people.
Yep.
And being in touch and picking their brain and like connecting with them and like actually connecting, setting up phone calls. And I remember when I decided to put myself out there, I was like, all right, who are the names that I listen to? And I'm like, all right, these people are kind of legit, like, oh gosh. And I remember Dean DaCosta was one of the folks. John Vlastelica was one of the folks. Derek Zeller. I'm forgetting names now, which is, Brian Fink, right? And I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to message them and ask for time to chat. Like with no agenda. I don't want anything from them. I just want to network. All four of them were like, yeah, sure. What's tomorrow look like? I'm like Dean DaCosta, right? Wrote 2 books on recruiting. And he's like, yeah, sure. You want to give me a call in a day or two? And I'm like, wait, really? Like, you don't know me from Adam. Like, sure, right? And so that's my value add for conferences. I am speaking this March at TalentNet in Austin. It's Craig Fisher's event. It is insanely good for building networks and connections, learning from cool people. Craig's also awesome. He's actually one of my mentors, so big shout out to him. Talking at SourceCon in Seattle. If you are a sourcer, a practitioner, it's way more practitioner focused than like leadership process paradigm focused. SourceCon's one of the best events. It's huge. The community is insanely awesome. And then I'm emceeing RecruitCon in Denver. And they are growing their conference and their space and their market and their reach. And it's turning out to be a super cool event. I'm emceeing it, so I have a fair amount of control over like the cool stuff that we do. So like,
that's awesome.
If you like my personality, you'll love the conference. If you don't, you may still love the conference, but like the in-between speaker sections are going to be rough for you. So those I think are the big ones. Oh, and for people who are looking for more training than actual like conference, look up HRTX. It's the Recruiting Daily guys. We're doing like one conference a month in like 10 cities around the country. And it's one day. It's super inexpensive. It's like a quarter of the price of other conferences.
Mm-hmm.
And it's laptops out, there's electric outlets everywhere, and there's like 4 or 5 trainers who are doing hands-on training. This isn't like let me talk to you about this. Is like, hey, let me show you some stuff. I want you to do it right now. Interrupt me, ask questions. Let me show you live. Let me if that's your jam and you really want hands-on training, HRTX is super solid. So those are those. If you want to get in touch with me, if you literally just Google Mike Batman, I'm going to be the first thing or the second thing that pops up. Facebook, LinkedIn are the big ones. I'm not on Insta, so don't try to find me there. I'm on Twitter. It's not my favorite platform, so it'd be a waste. And I'm on Slack. So I'm on Slack and Facebook Messenger and LinkedIn all day, every day. So reach out with a question, reach out and yell at me and tell me you think I'm wrong. I'm cool with that too. But reach out. Let's network. Let's connect. Let's find ways that like we can help each other and grow the community as a whole.
Love it. And remember, it's Michael Batman. If not, you're going to get Trump's lawyer if you weren't here in the beginning of the call. So
yeah.
Hey, dude, you've brought so much value. I appreciate you. If you can, just leave one nugget. I'm sure there's a lot of people on here listening that, hey, would love to have the success that you've had and would love to have the okayness of who you are that you have. I mean, what's one piece of advice you can leave the listeners with today?
Put yourself out there. Not what you think you are, not what your company is, not what you're trying to be. Put you out there. You are awesome. You are enough, and you will be accepted.
Dude, that's powerful. I love it. Short, sweet, to the point. Mike, thanks again for being here, man. All the listeners, thanks for joining in. Got another podcast coming up here in the next couple of weeks with Sherry Garcia. So that'll be really exciting as well. So thank you so much for listening today, Mike. Thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you in the next one.
Sounds great.